Welcome to this week's Cooking with Connie. Today, because we are January and we're in Indiana and we're going to get hopefully or possibly a snowstorm tomorrow, we decided we're going to do some soup because who doesn't love soup on a nice cold day? So this one is called green chili enchilada soup. And we're going to start with chicken breast. And I have already pre-cooked my chicken breast, so I just basically chopped up the chicken breast, sauteed it in a skillet. It doesn't take very long if you do it that way. You could actually throw your chicken not cooked, just chopped up, into your crock pot. Start it at the beginning of the day, let it cook all day, and everything should be good at the end of the day. So there's a lot of variations you can do in this, but I'm going to put my chicken in here. So you're supposed to use about 4 chicken breasts. And then we're going to use 32 ounces of low sodium chicken broth. So here's the thing about the chicken broth. If you're watching your sodium, it's really hard. You can find some salt-free ones, but it's kind of hard to really get really super low sodium chicken broth. So this one is reduced sodium, and it does take it down to 500 milligrams per serving. And if you're watching the rest of the salt content, that's probably not going to be too bad for your meal. But one thing you could do if you really really need to watch your salt content closely is to start your chicken from scratch. So make your own broth. So if you're someone that really has to watch the salt closely, just throw a couple of chicken breasts or 3 chicken breasts with the bones in it in the pan. Start heating that up with some water over it. So put your 32 ounces of water or maybe a little bit more because you're kind of get it to dissipate. And put about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in there and let that cook for a couple of hours. That's going to make you a really nice, rich broth that's not going to have any real sodium added in it. Take your chicken out of it, shred your chicken up so you're going to be able to put that back in. So that's one way you can really decrease the sodium. Now, one thing that I want to talk about today a little bit is about reading the labels. Now, when we look at a label, we see all these numbers and people get a little bit freaked out by the numbers. And I tell people, don't really pay attention to the numbers so much as you do the ingredients. So what I want people to do is get used to reading an ingredient list, all right? So what I'm going to look for in my ingredients is to make sure that I recognize everything that's in there so that it really is food that's in there, and that I'm looking for if there's actually sugar added to it or what kind of things are in there that I might want to be careful about. So start looking at those ingredient lists. The next thing that we're going to add is we're going to add a can or a jar of salsa verde. So you want 30 ounces of salsa verde. So that's just your green. I use the Great Value brand. I like it. It doesn't have any sugar added. Again, that's something that I'm looking at. I don't want to add that extra sugar. And you'd be surprised how many things actually have sugar that are put in there for flavor. Okay, I'm going to put my 2/3 of a cup of water in my jar so I can kind of rinse my jar out so I can get all of the good stuff out of that jar. And 2/3 of a cup of water is what we're going to add to this. All right, so I've got that in there. Now we're going to add 2 cans of the green chilies. Now I use mild because I want this to have a flavor, but I'm not really big into the really spicy stuff. So I'm going to use the mild green chilies, but if you want it hot, just put some of the spicier salsa in there or the spicier green chilies. So that's kind of one way you can kind of spice it up a little bit. And I did find that it was interesting as I was looking at the different cans of green chilies, there's a lot of variation in the amount of sodium that's in those. So just look at your jars, look how much sodium, if that's what you need to watch, and try to select the ones that have the lesser amounts of them. All right, so I've got my water in there. Now what we're going to do is start adding our spices to this mix. Okay, and so I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of cumin, which I have already got labeled and out here so that all I have to do is dump it in there. So we've got our cumin. We're going to use a tablespoon of chili powder. So as you can tell, this is going to have a lot of flavor with these seasonings in here. We're going to have a teaspoon of garlic powder and a teaspoon of onion powder. And then we're going to add a bag of rice cauliflower. okay? And you can get any brand. I usually just go with the cheapest brand, but just make sure when you buy it that that's all that's in there, okay? Again, look at that ingredient list. Make sure they haven't added a bunch of stuff to your rice cauliflower. So what I want to see on this, that my ingredients is cauliflower, and it's got a little bit of salt in it. It's got 70 milligrams in this. So you can kind of watch that too to find the ones that maybe have less. And then the last thing I'm going to add to this is a cup of Greek yogurt. And again, any kind of unflavored Greek yogurt is fine. I kind of like the Flavor Gods. It's kind of one that I've kind of settled on that I can get at Walmart. Walmart's an easy store for us. We're in rural Indiana, so we don't have a lot of options down here. But again, whatever brand, it doesn't matter on the Greek yogurt. So whatever you like, I'm going to put a cup of that in there. Okay. Now all I'm going to do after I get all this in there, and again, like I said, if you want to put this in a crock pot in the morning, put all your ingredients in there, put it on low, let it cook all day long, or whatever level you want. So we're just going to let this cook for a little bit, and then we'll come back whenever it's ready, and we'll let you see what it looks like, and we'll kind of teach you a little bit how to combine some foods together for a nice meal. Okay, now we're back. We have cooked that soup on medium-high for about 30 minutes. Now, I always think the soup is better if you cook it on a low heat and cook it for a longer period of time to meld the stuff, but we kind of wanted to show you what we got here. So this is our soup. And then what I wanted to talk a little bit about is, because soup is going to be a little bit higher in salt, is how we kind of combine some food with it so that we don't end up with a really high sodium meal. So what I've done is I've sliced up an apple, which I love my Gala apples, nice and sweet. And then what I've done is used these little crackers. These are called nut thins. These nut thins come in a lot of different varieties. They're relatively low in sodium. They're gluten-free. This is the flax blend here that I really like. They give me that crunch. So this is a really healthy alternative to crackers, or you can use it for dipping, for chips and things like that. So the nut thins are going to be a really good go-to to give you that crunch if you don't want to have the traditional crackers. So this is kind of how we're going to blend things together so that we have our fruit and we have our nut or our crackers and our soup. You could throw a little cheese in there if you wanted to. And what I wanted to finish with is to just make sure that, that you guys are making sure that you're liking our page and that you're subscribing to us so that you can continue to see us. We're going to try to come back each week and not just give you a recipe, but give you kind of a lesson on nutrition so that you can make better choices. Because I think knowledge is power. So I think the more that you understand about how to put the foods together and make sure that you're having a well-balanced diet so that you're getting the right nutrition is going to be really, really important for your overall health and happiness. So we'll see you again next week with a new recipe. And until then, make good food choices.